Well, we always say retirement is a journey, one that you shouldn't have to navigate solo. So that is why every week here on The Right Path to Retirement, we turn to financial advisor Jimmy Lin, certified financial planner and the founder of Right Path Wealth Management right here in Las Vegas. So there's a question people wrestle with all the time, and it's a big one. When should I actually be talking to an advisor in the first place? Morningstar put that question to Emily Guy Berthen. She's the author of The 5 Years Before You Retire. And here's what she had to say about it.
So 5 years is an amount of time that feels real. The finish line's on the horizon. Oh, wow, this is really happening. But there's still enough time that you can really make a big difference. So focusing on that 5-year time frame is kind of like the perfect time to kind of strike while the iron's hot. It gives you enough time to make some necessary changes so that you're well positioned to have the retirement that you'd like to, or at least close to it, rather than, if you're panicking the year before or even 3 years before.
So let me ask you this, Jimmy. When do you like to first meet a client before retirement? Are we talking 5 years out? Are we talking 10? And also, what if somebody comes to you who's just, 2-3 years away, and this is the first time they're seeking out some help?
We typically agree with Emily on that 5-year rule. And the reason being is that you don't want to, you're a year away from retirement and then you start thinking about things. You haven't planned for things like, what is your income stream going to be? There's Social Security filing strategies. If Social Security is going to be your main source of income, you want to figure out, does it make sense to turn that on early and get that lower benefit amount that we've talked about in the past? Or do you want to delay turning on your Social Security? Because many of us know that every year you delay your Social Security, you're going to get an increase in that benefit amount. Well, if you're a year from retirement, you don't really have time. If you decide that, hey, I think it makes sense to delay my Social Security by 3 to 4 years. Well, have you planned for how you're going to fill that gap? You want to make sure that you have a plan in place, that you've allocated funds and had those funds invested correctly in order to bridge that gap, right? When you start thinking about things like healthcare, if you're going to be retiring before the age of 65, well, Medicare doesn't start for many of us until age 65. So how are we going to bridge that gap? Sometimes the option is that we're going to get something like in the marketplace, the Affordable Care Act, where we're going to get our health insurance through that. Well, most people, they're able to get those reasonable, affordable insurance plans through the Affordable Care Act because there's things like credits that they provide, premium credits based on your income. But if your income is going to continuously be high during those first years of retirement because you're pulling a bunch of money out of your retirement accounts, well, that's ordinary income that you're creating, which then could trigger higher premiums. So you could tell how just those couple pieces, if you wait, a year or two before retirement to start thinking about that, well, you may not have allocated your funds appropriately. And if you want to all of a sudden allocate your funds, well, what if the market is on a downturn? Now you're going to start, selling off assets, locking in losses in order to start planning. So there's just so many variables. I think you start the conversation about 5 years out. That doesn't mean that you make any major changes yet. It's just an analysis of where you are today. And if there's opportunities where we could start shifting some of our assets and start planning for things in those first 5 years, you do that. But what you don't want to do is have a shorter time frame of 2 to 3 years where we got to get things done now. And now we're forced to make decisions that if we had more time, we might not have, but limited the time that we have before we retire. We have more limited options. So I just tell people 5 years is a great kind of timeline. Now, Casey, like you said, if somebody does come in, 2 to 3 years before retirement, well, we're working with what you're working with. It's better to come in that 2 to 3 year period than not to come in at all.
Right.
We are able to provide a lot of value. I'm not trying to scare people into saying you got to do it in 5 years because a lot of people life happens, right? We don't have the time to do that. But if you come in 2 to 3 years in advance, we're still going to be able to do a deep analysis on where you're at today and how we get you to the point where you have a confident retirement. But it's just taking that first step. You got to take that first step, and sooner the better on that.
On the inverse of coming in too late, is there such a thing as coming to see you too early? Are you seeing clients in their 30s and 40s? And if you are, what kind of things can you help people who are in that boat with?
Yeah, there are. I mean, for our sweet spot, we're not trying to serve all people. we believe that you have to have an expertise or a niche. And for us, it's those pre-retirees about 5 years from retirement, or those, entering into retirement. We have conversations because we do radio shows, because we have television segments. We do get a lot of phone calls from people in all stages of life. And I would say those people that are still accumulators, for anywhere between 20 to 40s, where they're still, stuffing away money, and they're still trying to save up for their kids' college and pay off their mortgage. For those people, I think that oftentimes, I don't want to give a cookie cutter approach, but it's really just about trying to save as much as possible, how to build up those retirement accounts, pay down your debt. And for those people, we don't add as much value. But, we'll still have conversations with people. But typically, once they're into their mid-50s, that's when you really want to start evaluating your situation and seeking out professional help.
When you see somebody who's coming in late, they're just a couple years out from retirement, what are they usually most worried about in that first meeting with you? What are they bringing to the table saying, hey, Jimmy, you got to help me with X, Y, Z?
Well, almost everybody comes in concerned about taxes, right? Because the government has done a good job of making the tax code very confusing. I think also social media has done a good job of using it as a bit of a scare tactic, because I have pretty honest conversations with people, and tax planning, tax strategizing, it's not important to all people. Now, there are certain demographics where tax planning is very, very important and can really change the success or failure of their long-term plan. But it seems like no matter what your net worth, no matter what your income, taxes is just something that is kind of a black box where you just don't understand how the mechanics work. And so it can be very scary. So that's kind of a starting point, is just helping people understand what their tax situation will look like during their retirement years. We do a bunch of taxes and retirement seminars to educate people on that. I would say that's the main thing. The other thing, though, and I think it's well documented, the main thing that retirees just have a big fear of is running out of money. Is my plan going to be okay if I want to have this type of lifestyle? But the good news is all of that, through a couple conversations, we can map that out and give people that clarity of if they're going to be okay or if there's adjustments that need to be made.
That is going to do it for us today here on The Right Path to Retirement. Jimmy, as always, thank you so much for breaking this all down for us today. We will be back next week, you and I, with more retirement insight for Las Vegas. But until then, I'm going to hand it back over to you for the final word today. Take us out, my friend.
Yeah, happy Saturday, everybody. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if you are in that stage where you have questions, please do not hesitate to call. We'd love to get on the phone with you.
Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Right Path Wealth Management. Right Path Wealth Management is also an investment advisory practice that offers products and services through Impact Partnership Wealth, LLC, a registered investment advisor. IPW does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Right Path Wealth Management are not subject to investment advisory requirements. Investing involves risk, including potential loss of principal. Any reference to the protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This radio podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It's not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decision, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Right Path Wealth Management is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Right Path Wealth Management.
Market Guard is a firm that provides investment signals as well as portfolio allocation recommendations, wide variety of model portfolios. Market Guard does not offer advice or enter into fiduciary relationships.